My name is Bill White. I'm the Mayor Pro Tem of the Village. I'll be chairing the meeting this evening in the absence of our Mayor. Martin Tully is traveling on business. The first thing we do is our proud tradition to stand and recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First order of business is to call the roll.
Commissioner Wallace?
Here.
Commissioner Earl?
Here.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Here.
Commissioner White?
Here.
Commissioner Jose?
Here.
Commissioner Barnett? Mayor Tully?
Okay. We do have 5. That constitutes a quorum, so we can proceed with our business. Next, the chair invites a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion to accept the council minutes from October 17th as presented.
Second.
Any comments, questions, discussion regarding the minutes? Hearing none, the chair asks for a roll call. Actually, we'll do that. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. The minutes are approved unanimously. Now we come to the 4th item, which is an opportunity for public comment. And this is for matters that are not on this evening's agenda. And to point out, I think many of you know this already, there's copies of our agendas on the table on both sides of the room. If anybody wishes to address the council on any matter that's not appearing on this agenda, now's your opportunity. Come to the microphone, state your name and address, and let us know what's on your mind.
Good evening. I appreciate this opportunity to talk to you. I've come to you before, about a year ago, asking for this same situation to be talked about and looked at. So I'm asking you again today to think about it, because we love living in Downers Grove. We live in Arcadia on the Green in Building 2. Love it. It's a fabulous place. We have lots of cars that go by us. We have lots of walkers to the train. It's a very busy area. I came to you last year asking you to do more about decorating, putting more flowers along that area, and also doing more with the trees. About 3 or 4 years ago, every tree on our street was lit up. And I think we are aware that the residents in this building do pay a bit of an extra tax over what is happening for some of the other residents in the community. We'd like to see that be used to decorate with flowers in the summer and lights on the trees at the holidays. And so our building has signed a petition asking you to really do even more to seriously think about it. We are glad to participate on a committee if you need for us to do that. We realize that as of this year, right now, you've already put up a lot of stuff, so it's probably not going to happen. But would you please seriously give it some consideration? We realize financially it's an issue, but your beautiful wreaths down by the parking garage, and we just would like to see the downtown area much more festive, both summer and winter, like the surrounding communities. And I did take some pictures of Westmont and a couple other communities, and I'm sure you'd rather I didn't share those. But we really would like for you to look at this, and I'm going to pass this down to whomever might take time to. My name and my husband's name and our phone number is on here. Feel free to give us a call.
Okay, thank you for your comments.
You very much.
I do ask, though, we need you to say your name into the microphone so we know who is speaking to us tonight.
Did I not do that?
Not that I recall.
Well, I'm so
if I
sorry.
did, I missed it. I'm sorry.
I'm Connie Nicholson.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very
and
much.
then we'll ask the staff image that and send all of us will get an email copy of that. So we can see that. Thank you. Any other public comments regarding matters that do not appear on this evening's agenda?
Good evening, Village Commissioners.
My name is Jenny Garst, and as you know, I live at 5230 Farrar Court. This is not the first time I've spoken, as you know, and thanks again for your willingness to listen and work with many of our residents, not just me, to implement effective stormwater management policies for all of Downers Grove. At the October 17th meeting, I asked Council the current status of actions being taken to forward the conversation and eventual adoption of effective stormwater management policies and regulations in our village. I asked these questions in light of two things. First, at the October 10th Council meeting, there was discussion of potential amendments to current stormwater management regulations based on a 2016 report made by the Stormwater and Floodplain Oversight Committee. It was titled, Potential Amendments to Village Regulations to Reduce the Negative Impacts of Stormwater Runoff from Residential Construction Activities. At that October 10th meeting, there was agreement among commissioners that current regulations are not adequate enough, and that yes, there needs to be further investigation into, particularly option 1, requiring on-site stormwater detention with an outlet to an established minor drainage system. What also prompted me to inquire about this status was extensive flooding Downers Grove experienced that following Saturday, October 14th, and the outcry from many residents at the next council meeting asking when the village intends to adopt effective stormwater management regulations. If not now, when? Once and for all. Finally. The response I received from council was that village staff would be tasked to evaluate objective scientific observations resulting from that recent storm, and public comments as well. Based on more information gathering, I was told staff would then return to council and offer a series of recommendations on how to address chronic problems. Council would then evaluate those recommendations with public notice so that everyone in the community would have an opportunity to evaluate recommendations and, if they might adequately solve problems, and prevent problems down the line. I was told chronic stormwater issues, staff gathering of information, evaluation, and response is a top priority. That it literally is on top of the list, and that village staff is aiming for late November or early December to deliver a package of options and series of new ordinances for council consideration. So, my question tonight, where is village staff in that process today? And what updates have you prepared for residents like me, asking and listening and expecting a response?
It's currently my understanding that we're on track to talk about this late November, early December. I'll let the village manager speak a little more to this. But briefly, my understanding is that there's actually a fair amount of technical work that needs to be done in order to present the options in a sensible, meaningful way. And with that, I'll ask the village manager any further comment.
We're aiming for the first Tuesday meeting in December due to there's going to be some council members absent on the 21st of November, so we wanted everybody to be here for that. So we'll present them at that time.
And then I believe the Friday before, the staff materials that will support the discussion item will put online. Then that we'll make sure that, I'll personally try to remember to remind you that way you can read online what the staff materials are in advance of the meeting. And it looks like we're going to talk about it again the first Tuesday in December.
Okay.
We haven't forgotten, believe me, we haven't forgotten.
Oh, I won't let you. Are you able to more accurately give a delivery date for a package of options and a series of new ordinances at this time?
The first meeting in December.
Yes.
Thank you.
And by the way, this is our first meeting after October 17th, when we haven't had any meetings in the meantime either.
I know.
Yeah.
I just didn't want you all to forget. Does the evaluation village staff is working on include looking further into option 1, requiring on-site stormwater detention with an outlet to an established minor drainage system?
Yes.
Is direction given to village staff for this Is direction given to village staff for this evaluation written? And does the public have access to understand the process?
I think that'd be in the meeting minutes from our last meeting. I think, because I'm not aware of any direction since October 17th, but we couldn't have done it since we haven't met since October 17th.
Well, no, so what I'm asking is based on the October 17th meeting, the October 10th meeting, there was going to be direction given to the village staff as to what they should be evaluating during this evaluation process. So what I'm wondering is that direction that was given to the village staff on how to carry out the evaluation or what they were to be evaluating, is that written down somewhere? And do we have, as the general public, do we have access to see what that direction was?
Well, the direction's written down to the extent that it's captured in the meeting minutes. We don't meet and sign documents giving direction outside of what we do up here on the dais. But everything that was said is captured by the minutes, and my experience is staff takes very good notes about what we're saying. And if what they come back with the first meeting in December is not what we had asked for, we'll make sure they know. But my experience are they're very good at understanding what we're saying and bringing back the information that we're asking for.
Okay, so I'm new to this process, so thank you for clarifying that for me. I appreciate it. Again, thank you all for making this issue a top priority. We are watching and waiting and appreciate your response and care. And thanks again for working with us to better understand the process and what's to come.
Thank you. Any other comments of a general nature not related to matters on this evening's agenda? Okay, we'll close item 4, public comments. We'll turn to item 5, which is a public hearing on the 2018 budget. Prior to this evening, we've had numerous informal discussions. This will be a formal public hearing in the form required by state law. And there's an opening statement that I'll read that puts this into context. Okay, the opening statement is, this public hearing will please come to order. This public hearing has been called by the Village Council to consider the proposed village budget. Notice of this hearing was published in the Down Grove Suburban Life newspaper on October 11, 2017, and a certificate of that publication is made a part of these proceedings. I'd like to summarize the procedures which we will follow for the meeting this evening. Number 1, first, Dave Philman, the village manager, will provide an overview of the proposed budget. Second, there will be an opportunity for members of the village council to ask questions or make comments. Third, there will be an opportunity for members of the public to make statements or comments, or at different times submit written statements or comments to be included in the record. After that, item 4, I will ask if any members of the council wish to make any further statement or have further questions, and thereafter I will make a motion to adjourn this public hearing. At this hearing, witnesses will not be sworn, and a verbatim written transcript of the statements or testimony given at the hearing will not be prepared. However, a recording of the procedures will be made on village equipment and retained until minutes of the hearing have been prepared and approved by the village council. With that, we'll turn to the first item on the agenda for this public hearing, and that's the staff presentation.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem White. This is the 5th in a series of many meetings about the budget. The budget itself is posted on the village website, and it was posted in late September and will remain online throughout the discussion process through approval, and then it remains online from that point forward as an archive. Just a couple of key points that are outlined in the manager's budget message. As far as the general fund goes, our major operating fund revenues are budgeted at $47.05 million, expenses at $47.37 million. It is a planned use of reserve budget. This budget does include $1.5 million in the new food and beverage tax revenue. This is a tax that is set to go into place on January 1st of 2018. There is no increase in property taxes levied for village operations. I believe this is the 7th year in a row with no increase. There is a $554,000 increase for the cost of required public safety pension contributions, and that increase shows up in the property tax levy. This budget includes further reductions in staffing Another 2.0 full-time equivalent positions will be eliminated. These are not actual positions, they are vacant, so there's no layoffs, but 2 additional positions. That's about a 20% reduction in staffing over the last 10 years. This budget includes funding to implement the direction this council provided on future village facilities. It also includes, as we discussed over our long-range planning over the summer months, a $300,000 contribution to other post-employment benefits, which operate much like pensions. And finally, this budget includes $21 million investment in our infrastructure systems, including streets, stormwater, water system, and the like. Obviously, we've been talking about this for a couple of months, but we're still happy to answer any questions that the council may have at this time.
First, any members of the council have any comments or questions which they wish to present at this formal hearing? We've had plenty of hearings before this. Just actually, so a little bit of context, this meeting is required by state law. We have probably 5 times as many meetings as required by state law. So rather than 2 or 3, we were having 11 this year. So, but this is the one that's done so that we satisfy the statute. Since none of my fellow commissioners up here have any questions or comments, is there anybody in the audience this evening that has a question or comment or wishes to submit a statement regarding the proposed budget? And Dr. Goodman? Okay.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Commissioners, staff. I'm Gordon Goodman. I live at 5834 Midoff, and I do have some comments. I shared them with this village council and the staff beforehand, and Mr. Baker has just put up the first slide in my presentation that summarizes the issues that I want to address this evening. So the first one is the management of invasive species in Lyman Woods buffers. As we probably all know, the Village Park District and the Forest Preserve District share ownership in the Lyman Woods, particularly the very high-quality area on the south part of the preserve that was originally acquired by this 3-party undertaking, in which the village actually took the lead and loaned money to the Park District. And it's something now that is about 20 years old, a little more. But during the hearing at the end of 2014, December 2014, the village became aware of the poor quality of maintenance, no maintenance, in fact, for these buffer areas. And during 2015, the Forest Preserve District prepared a 5-year plan for which the village and the Park District and the Forest Preserve District were looking for a way to implement. And the total cost of that 5-year plan was $101,000 approximately. That was 2015, so the costs may have changed, but the plan is still a good one, and it hasn't been implemented yet. I'd like to talk to you about including that in the village's budget, at least the village share, so that when, as the Mayor Tully has taken the responsibility for working out an agreement by which this can be implemented, the village is prepared to have money to carry out its part. And as part of my efforts to get all of these parties online, somebody has to take the first step, and I think the village, as it took the first step in acquiring this land, should also be the first entity to take the step of putting money aside to actually do this maintenance of the buffers. So that's the first point that I want to address. The second point is I've been talking to the village staff and the council throughout the year and perhaps last year too, about improving pedestrian safety in the center of the Central Business District at Curtis and Main by improving the traffic signals. When I discussed this on October 21st at the Coffee with the Council about the budget, I was told that it was a much more serious problem than just changing the way the signals work, because the signals are not flexible enough to accommodate changes like this, and in fact it will require an upgrading of the traffic signals at Curtis and Main. So the second point I want to raise is that the upgrading of those traffic signals should be a part of the community investment program for 2018 through 2022, along with several other modernization of traffic signals that's already in the Community Investment Plan, or CIP. And finally, another topic that I've raised with the council over the year is that trash is scattered throughout the downtown area, the Central Business District. When it's emptied out of the trash collection barrels there. And I had been under the impression that perhaps the village should invest in some bag liners or something comparable with the way the Park District and other entities that have these trash collection barrels and are avoiding scattering the waste as it's collected. But then I read the contract. The village has adopted in July this year an extension to the contract for waste and refuse recycles removal from the community. And I found that actually we've already taken care of that, and the village has already a strong requirement for the franchisee who has that contract to take care of these barrels, trash barrels in the Central Business District. And so it isn't a need for more money after all, but it's a need to improve the process. So those are the 3 points that I wanted to bring to your attention this evening. The next slide shows the buffer areas for Lyman Woods. These are 3 areas that border this very high quality part of the woods. I guess I don't have a pointer, but if you see this figure, the structures on the lower left hand of the figure are the hospital buildings, and the light green area, the rectangular light green area, is the highest quality preserve portion, about 18 acres of high quality forest and vegetation. The 3 buffer areas that are identified there surround this high quality area and separate it from originally the construction activities in the hospital. But now we're finding that invasive species are coming into these buffer areas. Instead of protecting the high quality area, they are a source of intruding species, invasive species from these. So that's the problem, is to work out some way to maintain them. And the next slide indicates that we had a substantial discussion of this issue at the end of December 2nd, 2014, in which the village council, particularly Mayor Tully, expressed his interest in proceeding with this, expressed the idea that he didn't think that the hospital should be responsible for the costs of this maintenance, and that he was looking for permission from the hospital or some mechanism, a license perhaps, by which the 3 owners of the property could come in on hospital property and maintain that. And if we bring that slide just up a little bit, Mr. Kaysen was the attorney representing the hospital, and according to our minutes and my recollection of the meeting, he responded to the mayor's comments that said, based on those statements, the hospital would cooperate. So I'm still looking for that cooperation to bear fruit and for us to have permission to go onto the hospital property or our contractors to do that. And so when that permission comes, Mayor Tully had taken that on as a responsibility, and I understand he is not going to run for re-election, so I anticipate that he'll accomplish that during 2018 before his term ends. So the village council should be prepared to make expenditures once that comes into play. So that's why my request is on the next slide that it's please add to the village budget 1/3 of the estimated management costs for the Lyman Woods buffer zones, the first year total of which has been estimated to be on the order of the total amount, $42,900, so the village share would be $14,300. And this table is the table of breakdown for those costs of the 5-year plan that was prepared by the Forest Preserve District staff in the summer of 2015. And my point is that it's time to do this. The next slide deals with the improvement of the activation signals for pedestrian crossings at Curtis and Main. Currently, pedestrians walking along Curtis Street must now manually activate the Main Street crossing signals at all times. If those signals are not activated for crossing, the crossing time is 12 seconds less than when they are activated. And people do try to sneak across if they come up to the sign after the cycle has begun. And during the business day, that's not a very good thing to have happen. Automatic activation of these signals at certain times of the day could improve pedestrian safety in downtown. An upgrade of the signals, as I was told October 21st, would be required to allow sufficient flexibility for this sort of change or any other changes from the current cycle. So I'm asking that you please add a project sheet for upgrading Curtis and Main traffic signals to the village's CIP for the 2018-2022 period. At the time, October 21st, we discussed this in the coffee with the council. I understood that the village is seeking a grant to facilitate this, and I believe that consistent with the indications for upgrading along Ogden Avenue signals, this should be added to the formal community improvement program. The next slide deals with the reducing of the trash being scattered in the central business area when the barrels are cleaned. The barrel here is at the corner of Curtis and Washington, next to the post office, which you see in the background. When it's emptied, the debris from that on a windy day will blow all the way along the the east boundary of the post office building up to Burlington. The right-hand slide is taken looking from Burlington toward Curtis, and you see the debris has blown all the way up there. After these pickups in the downtown area, I end up picking up a lot of trash and putting it back in the barrels. That's not right. We have the next slide, please. we have worked out in that extension of the contract with Allied that I mentioned has been approved in July 18th this year. This paragraph, if you could bring it up a little bit more and we can see where this is excerpted from that Exhibit B, which deals with services for municipal and public facilities. And it states essentially that this service will be provided free of charge by the contractor, and all we have to do is get them to do it better. Whether they put in a liner bag or just they modify their procedure in order not to redistribute the trash after they're emptying the barrel, it's the right way to go, and it will improve the situation in downtown Downers Grove substantially. So the last slide summarizes my requests. Please add to the village budget 1/3 of the estimated management costs for the Lyman Woods buffer. 1/3 of the first year costs as estimated in 2015 would be $14,300. Please, and then the costs go down because there's a very big backlog of work that has to be done that first year. Please add a project sheet for upgrading the Curtis and Main traffic signals to the village's community investment program for 2018 through 2022. It looks like you're going to do it. Why not put the project sheet in the budget? Please require the village's waste hauling contractor to either use trash container liner bags in the downtown trash containers or use some other method to reduce significantly the amount of trash scattered during trash collection operations in the central business district. So I hope you'll take these points into consideration, whether you can amend the current budget. It seems after this momentum that's been developed over the 5 times the village public opportunities for comment more than what the state requires, it's unlikely that you'll do it tonight, but sometime I hope you'll accomplish these 3 objectives. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Dr. Goodman, for your comments. I will consult with Mayor Tully. I think others will too. I was not on the council in December of 2014, so I need to find out where that's at. I have no personal knowledge of that. And I'm sure staff will brief all of us on these points, but I'm not really in a position to respond until I get further input from other stakeholders. But,
yes.
But definitely taking consideration. There's no
Good. That's the other point that I wanted to make as a subtext here, that although you have maybe 5 or 10 other opportunities for people to talk about this, or at least in the beginning to hear what the staff has been proposing, it's only on occasions like this when you're having a public hearing that people get to express themselves in a way that the rest of the community besides you can hear. So these public hearings are a very important component in the process of reviewing and approving the budget.
Absolutely. That's why we do them.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other members of the audience wish to speak as part of our budget hearing? Any final comments or questions from fellow members of the council? And I'd ask staff, since both for our benefit and for the people here in the audience, what's the budget process? What's the timetable going forward after this evening?
We will talk about it again at the next council meeting. It'll be on a first reading. That's November 14th. After that, depending on council's pleasure and direction, it will be ready for approval any council meeting starting on November 21st through the end of the year.
Okay, so and then the legal requirement is that we simply pass it by the end of the year. Is that the legal requirement?
Yes, that's correct. So we can file it with the county by the end of the year.
And the earliest date that we would be able to formally pass it would be the 21st of November.
November 21st, correct.
Okay. Unless any of my fellow commissioners have anything they wish to add, I would invite a motion to adjourn the public hearing.
I move to adjourn the public hearing.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the motion to adjourn the public hearing passes unanimously. We can then move to item 6 on this evening's agenda, which is the consent agenda. The chair invites a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Mayor Pro Tem White, I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there anybody in the audience that wishes to speak to us on any matter on the consent agenda? Any member of the council wish to remove an item from the consent agenda for further discussion? Let me call the vote, please.
Commissioner Earl?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Aye.
Commissioner Wallace?
Aye.
Commissioner Jose?
Aye.
Mayor White?
Aye. The consent agenda has been approved unanimously. We have no active agenda items this evening. We move now to item 8, which is first reading. The procedure for first reading, this is matters that are presented to the council for initial consideration. No action will be taken this evening. Procedure is that village staff makes an initial presentation. Members of the council have an opportunity to ask questions. After that, we'll open it up to the public if they have any comments or questions regarding the presentations that are made this evening. With that, item 8A, I turn the floor over to the village manager, Dave Fieldman.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem White. The first item is consideration of a resolution granting historic landmark designation for the property at 735 Maple Avenue. Our Community Development Director, Stan Popovich, has additional information on this petition.
Thank you, Manager Fieldman. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and council members. The first item is the historic landmark at 735 Maple Avenue. The property is pretty much due south of Village Hall here on Maple Avenue, just a little bit west of Fairmount Avenue on Maple Avenue. If we zoom in here a little bit, you can see the property outlined here in blue. The property was built circa 1892. It's a good example of a Queen Anne house. You can see a cross gable here. This is the main facade that you'd see from Maple Avenue. Cross gable roof. It does have original clapboard siding. The band boards, which are the white boards going horizontal across the building. It's a little hard to see here, but you see some ornamentation, some gingerbread shingles on the gables that face there, and then some barge board above the front porch there as well. So it's a good example of a Queen Anne home. And then the carriage house, which you can see in the back as well, is original, and that's also under consideration for landmark status as well. That was built about the same time. It is original. There have been some windows updated on that, but the windows in the house are mostly original as well. Looking over the criteria, it's built in circa 1892, so it's definitely over 50 years of age, and it's a good Queen Anne style. So if there's any questions that you have for me, I can answer those as well tonight.
Any questions from members of the council? Anybody in the public wishes to speak to this item?
Good evening. Rich Calavani, 6825 Camden Road. I'm just standing to speak in favor of this nomination for landmark. I want to thank Mrs. Black for bringing this petition forward to be a nice addition to our landmark properties. Thanks for your consideration.
Good evening, Amy Gasson, 5320 Benton Avenue. The most difficult part of landmarking your home is making the decision to do it. I fully support this landmark designation, and I want to thank the homeowner for bringing this petition forward. Thank you.
So how many is that now?
Stan has it memorized. I'm going to put it right on the slide.
How many?
A lot. I believe
More than my fingers?
I believe this would be, there's 2 on the ADRB agenda next week, and that would be case 10. So I think this is 8 this year, 8 or 9. I can get that number for you directly.
Oh, that's fine. It's just very successful. It adds a lot to the heritage. It helps a lot to preserving the heritage of our community. Anybody else have anything? Thank you. We could now move to item 8B,
which is an ordinance authorizing a special use for the property at 1543 Ogden for an automobile dealership, and Stan will present this item as well.
Thank you, Manager Philman. As you noted, 1543 Ogden, it's on the south side of Ogden Avenue at the corner of Downers Drive and Ogden Avenue, just a little bit northwest of downtown here. Property, you can see, we'll zoom in a little bit. This is a small property on Ogden Avenue. And then if we zoom in here, you can see Downers Drive on the left and then Ogden Avenue on the top there. One of the key points here is Downers Drive is closed pretty much at the south property line here, so there's not access to the neighborhood from Ogden Avenue. You can see the property is improved with a small one-story building, 2 curb cuts onto Ogden, and then a single curb cut onto Downers Drive. Petitioner is proposing to maintain the existing building and then to close one of the curb cuts on Ogden Avenue, maintain 1 curb cut, and then maintain the Downers Drive curb cut as well. You can see here I've sort of simplified it here, showing a lot of the green space that's being added to increase the green space there. And then also one of the key things is we like to make sure that the car carriers can get in and out of the property without having to unload on Ogden or other streets. And so the car carrier will be able to move on to Downers Drive and out onto Ogden Avenue to exit the site. So that is what's going on with this property as proposed here. The petitioner has agreed to the 8-foot setback off of the Downers Drive property line there, which was a condition of approval in the staff report. With regard to 1543 Ogden, as you know, Ogden's a corridor commercial use. The use is auto-oriented. It could serve the local and regional customers. It eliminates 1 Ogden Avenue curb cut, which is a goal, and it increases the green space on the property and along Ogden Avenue in particular. With regard to the standards, those have been met. The petitioner's here if you have any specific questions, or if there's any questions that I can answer, I'd be happy to answer those for you at this time.
members of the council have questions for staff or for the petitioner? Hearing none, at that point, any member of the public wish to address the council on this first reading? Again, no action will be taken this evening, but this is an opportunity to gain background on this particular agenda item. And don't all rush up at once. Stampede, Mr. Popovich. Seeing none, I think we can safely move on to item 8C.
Which is an ordinance amending certain traffic provisions. Here to provide information on this item is our Public Works Director, Nan Newland.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. We have 2 items tonight relating to traffic and parking regulations. Both items were initiated by resident requests and were presented to the Transportation and Parking Commission at their September meeting. The first one is related to stop signs in the area of Lee Street. There were 3 unregulated intersections here. Staff reviewed them, did a traffic study in this area, and found that 2-way stop signs were warranted at these 3 intersections. So we have Janet, Carol, and Virginia, which we are proposing to have 2-way stops that stop for Lee Street here. Like I said, these were presented at the Transportation Parking Commission and recommended for approval by a vote of 6-0. The second item is a parking item. It was again initiated by residents. This is in the area of the Belmont train station off of Burlington. This is Cross Street between Burlington and Haddow. The rest of the streets in this area have parking restrictions because commuters tend to park on streets that aren't restricted. And that's what we were finding here. For some reason, this street did not have parking restrictions in place. Neighbors approached us because they were seeing commuter parking happening, and because of the narrowness of the street, it was causing issues with traffic on this section. We did, again, bring this to TAP in September, and they voted 6-0 to recommend approval of a maximum 4-hour parking restriction on both sides of Cross Street between Haddow and Burlington. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you have about either of these items.
Questions from my fellow commissioners? Questions or comments from members of the audience? Okay, thank you. You can now move to item 8D.
Which is really related to our ongoing discussion about the FY18 budget. It is a motion estimating the aggregate tax levy. Mike Baker, our Deputy Village Manager, will present this item.
Thank you, Dave. This item represents a required procedural step that will ultimately lead to adoption of the village's property tax levy. It does represent one of the 11 planned public meetings as part of the village's budget process. And the staff report that was prepared includes an extensive amount of information detailing the levy. But I think there's a few key points that are important to emphasize, and some of them were already highlighted this evening. First of all, the tax levy has not changed since the recommended budget was released in late September. And that levy is a flat levy for operations, so no increase in the portion of the levy that supports village operations, which is, as was mentioned, the 7th year that has been the case. And there is a $550,000 increase in the levy for required portion of the levy for public safety pensions. Once the motion is approved, then the next step in the process will involve the public hearing for the levy, and that is tentatively scheduled for December 5th. Be happy to answer any questions council may have on this item.
Any questions from my fellow commissioners regarding this process? So just once again, let me clarify. My understanding of this is that this is the proposed levy, the maximum that we can levy, and then at a future point prior to the end of the year, we'll scale that back to what is actually requested in the budget. Okay.
That's correct.
Any member of the public wish to speak to the council regarding this particular item? Well, it looks like that concludes our first reading. Thank you. Okay. Item 9 is the mayor's report, which I will step in and make a very, very short and brief report, and that's simply to congratulate the Downers Grove North High cross-country team on winning the state championship, which is a pretty remarkable event. So congratulations. Congratulations. And that's actually the only report I have. Move the manager's report.
No report tonight, Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you.
Attorney's report.
Thank you, Mayor. 2 items to present this evening. The first is an ordinance authorizing a special use for 1543 Ogden Avenue to permit an automobile dealership. And the second is an ordinance amending certain traffic provisions. Both will be on next week's active agenda.
Okay, thank you. We'll go to council member reports. Commissioner Jose?
No report, thank you.
Commissioner Waldeck?
I do have a couple of reports. Relax a while, this may take a bit. The first one, first off, I want to thank people who showed concern for a few of my absences up here. It was just a series of unfortunate events. I guess when you miss 2 meetings in the first 8 years, when you miss a couple over a few weeks, people get concerned, and there's really no need for concern, but I would like to bring something up. I do plan on meeting or missing the meeting next week. Some may consider this TMI, too much information, but I think it's important. When you get to the age of 50 and above, which I am, every few years, several years, you go to your doctor and they recommend a procedure, which is a very simple procedure. The problem is the preparation is a real pain in the... And it's something that should be done. I mention this because in past years I've lost relatives, we've lost friends, and you see the suffering they go through, and what they tell you is they should have had this done. So I will be planning on doing something like that because I plan on being around for a while. And I bring this up because if you are age 50 and above and you're putting this thing off, that's a really dumb thing to do. So, enough of that. Just hope to save a life or two. If you haven't had it done, talk to your doctor. In my capacity as downtown management liaison, I have a report. And if you look at our downtown recently, you'll notice there's a lot of changes underway. For example, there's a Christmas tree that magically appeared at the train station. It is not decorated as yet. It will be. There's some lights going up around light posts that. So decorations are going up in preparation. It's November. So get prepared for the holidays. I understand that our executive director of the Downtown Management Corporation, Linda Kunze, has negotiated with Santa North Pole Enterprises and the Elves Local 1225 to get the true one and only Santa Claus to our downtown this season. So kids, if you're watching, if you're still up, tell the folks you want to see the real deal in downtown Downers Grove. And by the way, the gingerbread house is located right next door to the toy store. There's a lot of details going on, so please check the website, www.downtowndg.org. Remember the .org, not .com. A lot of the details are there. The Gingerbread Festival is November 24th to the 26th. Start planning on it. Friday, November 24th, there's story time at the library at 3:30, and that will be followed by a procession to the tree lighting ceremony. Tree lighting ceremony is scheduled for 4:30. The gingerbread manhunt all day will be all day. That sounds rather ominous to me. Gingerbread house contest is all day at participating businesses. Windows, yes, we got windows. You don't have to hop a train and go east. We got plenty of windows, and you can vote for your favorite window and business. Saturday, November 25th, it's the 9th Annual American Express Small Business Saturday. Let me repeat. Small Business Saturday, Saturday, November 25th. For many small businesses, the Christmas holiday season accounts for about half, more or less, of all sales for the year. Keep in mind that the more sales tax generated in Downers Grove allows us to keep property taxes lower. So it's a win-win situation. There's free carriage rides from 1 to 4. The gingerbread manhunt all day. I don't know what happens if they catch them. You can get a picture with the gingerbread boy and girl around town, presumably while everyone is hunting down their old man. The real Santa Claus is occupying the gingerbread house from 1 to 4. And that leaves us with Sunday, November 26th. You can have a breakfast with Santa at the Pinecone Cottage Tea House at 10:15. Santa's putting on weight, getting prepared, so he'll be at Emmett's Ale House at 11:30 a.m. Reservations are required, so that's why I bring this up tonight. You got to plan ahead, get your reservations in. After that, Santa will head over to the gingerbread house from 1 to 4. Free, I repeat, free carriage rides 1 to 4 at 1028 Curtis Street. You can get pics with Santa and take pictures with the gingerbread boy and girl. You can vote for your favorite window. Gingerbread house contest is all weekend. Ginger Bucks reward card involved all weekend. And apparently the manhunt for the gingerbread man continues. I don't know why nobody caught him. I don't think he's slippery. You have to feel for him because his kids are running around town modeling for pictures, and his house is being taken over by Santa Claus. And I don't know what happens when we get him, and I don't know what he did to become a fugitive. Anyway, there's so much to do in the downtown. You can have a lot of holiday fun and help with downtown merchants who give so much back to our community. So make your plans, and thank you. That's all I have.
I was just going to say there's no way I can follow that.
I'm just glad I got to go first.
No report, Mayor.
Let me just
Thank
say,
you.
gosh, we missed you, Commissioner. Yeah, I haven't laughed like that in a while. I want to mention the library had a very successful book giveaway. Drew a lot of people in, gave a lot of books away, and anything you want to go in there and take a look at what they were passing out for free. Yes, there were books for free that you get to keep and don't have to return. And I know for some people, returning them sometimes can be a problem. So go over there, check out the books that they do have available for you to check out now, and take a look at what they recommend you read. They've got some really interesting stuff for the kids and for the adults. So that's all I have.
Hey, thank you. And I guess I do want to add, I wish to express my pleasure that Commissioner Waldeck is in such fine spirits. Very glad to see that. And with that, the chair would invite a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Meeting adjourned.